You are a designer, CEO, YouTuber. You touch on all the things my podcast touch upon about creativity, marketing, entrepreneurship, content production, everything. So to have you as a guest is amazing. What are your focus right now between Blind and the future?
Sure. I like to describe myself as a loud introvert. That will tell you a little bit about my personality. And the future has this really big mission, which is to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. In a former life, I was a graphic designer. I started my company in 1995 called Blind, and we made commercials and music videos for 20 plus years for some of the biggest brands and bands in the world. In 2014, a friend of mine, a former college classmate, said to me, let's go make content on YouTube. And I thought that was the dumbest, craziest idea ever. And then I did it.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I transformed my life and my business. Now I do content creation full time. I no longer do client work, and it's been a beautiful, glorious path.
How are you able to vocalize it or to put words on it the way you do? How much time do you spend thinking about these things?
Something that people need to know is about 5 years into my business, I had a windfall of profit for that year. And I asked my wife, who also is my business partner, that maybe we should spend some of this money on professional resources. So that year we hired a CPA, we hired a financial planner, and I also hired a business coach. And the business coach really is the person who transformed me and my thinking in terms of learning how to run a business. Up until that point, I was successful because of talent and hard work, but I hit a ceiling, and that ceiling was just killing me. So now I'm going to have to work on the things that nobody wants to work on: sales, marketing, leadership, a business mindset. And so for the next 13 years, I worked with this same business coach and would meet with him once a week for 13 years. This is way before I'm even thinking social media, before I'm thinking YouTube. And so now fast forward to 2014, I've run a business for, at that point, almost 20 years. And the number one thing that people would start to ask me about is, Chris, I want to start a business. What do I need to know? And I would answer these questions one-on-one over the telephone, doing things like that. But eventually I got tired of doing that. And I said to this one person, his name is Frank, I said, Frank, I'll answer your question if we can record it and do it live. He's like, happy to. And so to my surprise, when I did this kind of content, it started to catch a lot of people's attention. I thought, who wants to tune into YouTube to see like an Asian bald guy talk about business and creativity? And it turns out actually quite a few people do want to hear about business. And so we found a place and a space that wasn't really it wasn't overwhelmed with lots of people talking about it. So I was happy to be one of a few people who are talking about the business of design.
If I can ask, in your past, what was the most defining for you getting to where you are now? Do you see like one place or one thing that gets you on this path?
So for me, the big breakthrough was when I was able to do a national car commercial. Okay. So once we did a national car commercial, everybody else would say, okay, you're legitimate. You know what you're talking about. We know how to sell you. We know how to work with you. And at that moment, our company blew up in wonderful ways. But before you can get that national car commercial, you have to do the regional car commercial.
Of course.
And before you can get that, you have to do something simple. And then you just keep tracing it all the way back. And usually for a lot of things, I can trace it back to the singular act. And it all began when I was still in school, when there was this guy, his name is Jason Hoover. He's a friend of mine. He's an industrial designer. We're both poor. And so we're both trying to make it in the world. And he couldn't have finished his education, but I became friends with him. I tried in every way I could just to help him when he needed it. Mm-hmm. So Jason then later on introduces me to someone who then introduces me to someone, and then, you know, the rest of the story.
Yeah.
So if I turn my back on this person, if I said, you know, you're just as broke as I am, I only want to work with rich students, I only want to help people who I know who can help me, then none of this would have happened.
What is the coolest client work you have done?
The project I loved the most was a music video. and it was done for the Ravenettes, and I've done 2 music videos for them, and it's the most joy, and it was the hardest work I've ever had to do. And mostly because it was a client that gave us a very open brief, and they had very little input on it, not because they didn't have the right to. It's just 2 artists work together. They respect you to do your thing.
Yeah.
And that creates immense pressure, because, when things don't work out from a client that's very controlling, you could always tell the team, yeah, it wasn't as good because they made us do this, right?
Yeah.
But when the artist says, do whatever you want, if it's not good, who are you going to blame? You just blame yourself.
Yeah.
So it's an immense amount of pressure, and it's also a great opportunity. So we got to play, we got to explore, we got to make art, and to get paid for it, and I got to be seen by lots of people. And so for me, those 2 music videos for the Ravenettes are my favorites.
Cool. How do you come up with ideas? What kind of process do you have?
I have a very specific process. It's borderline rigid. I like to think of it as, if you listen to musicians, artists, the ones that understand a process, their creative formula, are able to make hit after hit. And the ones who luck into it, they're called one-hit wonders.
One-hit wonders, yeah.
Yeah, they, for whatever reason, they got together and they made this really amazing piece of music, and they have no idea how they got there. I'd like to consider myself as a person who's not a one-hit wonder, who can do something and have predictable and repeatable success. And in order for that to happen, you have to figure out some kind of creative process or formula. So for me, almost always, it begins with understanding what the problem is. And I need really strong focus and clarity from the client. Like, the solution sounds like this in just words. Like, can we commit to 2 or 3 words? Once I have that, I go into research mode, and I have usually a team of designers working for me. I will say it's about beauty, it's about sacrifice, it's about whatever the words are. I want you to find images, art, still frames, photography, illustration, videos, on anything that you think relates to this. And we create these gigantic buckets. And so if I have a team of designers, there can be literally hundreds of things in each one of these buckets. And I can quickly scan through and I'm like, I like this, I like this. And then I let my imagination take over. Like, based on the theme of love, this image is speaking to me. And I'll go away and I'll sit down and like, why? And I'll write some ideas down. I'll try to create a story around that. And then I give that story back to the designers. And I said, find me images that tell this story. And we start to shape the story together. That's typically how I work.
What is your most marked characteristic?
My stoicism.
I love that. What quality do you like most in a person?
Honesty.
What do you value most in your friends?
Loyalty.
What do you most dislike?
What do I most dislike in general?
In general, yeah.
The thing that, obviously there are a lot of big problems in the world, right? But I'm not going to focus on that. I'm trying to give a very personal answer. I generally have issues being around people who don't truly understand themselves and are wearing a mask, pretending to be someone else, because I can usually see who they are. And it's difficult for me to be around people like, I see you. It'd be nicer if you just stop pretending to be someone else. And so there's that friction that exists.
Cool. Who are your heroes in real life?
My heroes are my parents, both my dad and mom, for the lessons they taught me. My dad about hard work, persistence, living humbly, delaying gratification for long-term goals. I learned that from my dad. My mom has this super beautiful, passionate spirit. She's creative. She's adventurous. She's bold. I wished for her, and obviously this is an empty thing, but I wished for her that when she was a young woman that she was born to different parents and grew up in America where things were possible, because she would be a very different person today.